don't need to fight tonight.
What is up, you guys? So I'm working on the 636, and I think it's been about a week or so since I posted any new information, so I figured I would go ahead and inform you guys on what's going on. And the biggest news is we got a motor. So I'm gonna put some of this back on here so you guys can kind of see what I've done so far, because obviously, like, I had to go to Houston to pick it up, so it's a pretty good drive for me. And like, got down there, picked it up, and this was all after work, so you know, of course it took time. So I get back to the house and I'm like so eager to start tearing it apart. So let me just give you guys a scope first of what we're actually doing. We're dropping the motor from the 636, and all we're doing is a head swap. So basically, this motor from, I know you can't see it, but the new motor from the exhaust manifold up is getting replaced. Okay, so this motor is blown in the lower end. It threw a rod. So the upper is still fine. So what we're going to be taking from this motor is the camshafts, the valves, and the head case, basically, and that's going to go on that motor. So I'm going to show you guys what I did up to this point, and then show you what we're going to do to finish this off. If you have to do what I'm doing, your motor is going to look a lot like this when you get it. First thing, you have to take the spark plugs out. That's where these are, and your coil sticks would be in there, you know, on top of the spark plugs. So take that apart, remove the 6 bolts up top. They look like this, with these little rubber grommets on them. So those are what you're going to want to get. Remove those. Boom. What do we have? So this is a dual overhead cam engine. So there's 2 cams, these camshafts that run down either side, and the little arms, the bumps on the cam, are what push down the intake valves and allow them to open. That's your intake valves down in there at your cylinder head. Well, when the engine strokes back up, it causes your exhaust valves, which are down in there, to open and let the hot air out. The camshafts are connected to the crankshaft via the timing chain, which I've already removed the cover before. This is to do with timing. I don't remember what this is exactly called, but you have to take it off, I think. I don't know if you have to take this off, but it doesn't matter because this is my parts motor, so we can take whatever off. You're going to need to remove that. You're going to have to take your screwdriver, which is what I did, and put it through one of the holes while you turn it left, because if you don't, it's going to want to turn the crankshaft and the camshafts. After that, over here in this little hole was this bad boy. You're also going to need to remove that. That is the camshaft chain tensioner, timing chain tensioner. So what we're trying to accomplish is, now we have to, I've already loosened the bolts. These covers over the camshafts have to come off. We're going to remove that and remove the camshafts. That way we can get the timing chain off. Once we've done that, we can remove the bolts on the side and pull the head. Then that's the part we need, is the head. Over here, I've already loosened the screws, but I'm not going to pull it until I get the motor out of here. The throttle bodies are going to have to come off, and then of course your wiring harness and all that stuff. The reason I'm going to wait for all that stuff last is because when it comes down to wiring harness stuff, personally, I mean, because I have a little bit limited experience when it comes to the electrical side of this kind of stuff, you really don't want to plug up the wrong thing to the wrong thing, or leave something unplugged, because then the bike's not going to work and you're going to get super frustrated, and you know, you're not going to wheelie. So right now what I'm going to do is go ahead and remove that cover, and give you guys an idea of what it's going to take to get this head off. Also, we've got some this is the water intake. I don't know if this is the in or the outside, but the water goes there. So what we're also going to have to do is look in all places when we pull this head where there's bolts connected and where there's not and all that kind of stuff, because we've got two on this side. I don't see any up front, and one Allen screw on the side. So there's a part of me that feels like there's more to it than that. So I'm gonna pull all this apart. We're at least gonna worry about getting the timing chain off and get the cams out, and I'll show you guys what that looks like, and focus on getting this head off. As far as dropping the motor, that might be a tomorrow project, because I still have my chain connected in the back, and there's still a lot of crap connected up here. The throttle cable is still connected, and I have to take that little reservoir out and all that stuff. So we're gonna get to that here real soon, but for right now we're gonna worry about getting the part we need off of our parts motor. So let's do it. Okay, so I've removed all 12,000 of those screws. It wasn't that many of this cover for the camshafts. So we're just gonna ease that off, set it somewhere, and then now that leaves us with our camshafts. So we're gonna try to finagle these out of here really nicely, just like so, without damaging anything. Set them to the side, and that is gonna free up our timing chain. So once the cams are off, now theoretically the only thing really stopping us from getting this thing off now is removing all the screws and stuff. So which a minute ago when we were talking about, wow, that doesn't seem like that many bolts, there's a lot of bolts in here to remove the head. So this timing chain I don't really care about unless I need it for the other bike, for the other motor. So I can just let that fall through or take it out, whatever. Here's our valves. And I don't know. I'm just seeing some things, y'all. Anyways, we're gonna, all this looks really good. There's no buildup or anything like that, so I'm super proud of that. So our next step is definitely going to be to remove all of these bolts, and we're going to pull this head off. So most likely, like I said, when I break down the other motor that's on the bike now, we're going to compare parts at that point and decide, what's better. But by the judgment of this motor, it looks really clean on the inside. So I'm supposing that I'll probably use this one if I had to gander. But these valves and cams. But like I said, we might pull mine apart and it might look better, or I might find a defect in one of these somewhere. So next step, I'm gonna start pulling bolts. My gasket I kept intact, which is super cool. So we're not gonna have to get another gasket. Something that I will stress: make sure you keep a container with all of your screws. What's good about what Kawasaki did here is that so far none of my screws are identical, so all the screws for different parts are all either a different color, length, or head type. So that's super cool because it's going to make it easy for me to put it back together. The generic sizes are 10 millimeter, and then all the inside stuff so far has been 8 millimeter. So other than the oddball sizes for like the tensioner and the bolt that held on the crankshaft timing sprocket right there. So anyways, so now what I'm going to do is, like I said, go ahead and start the daunting task of pulling all these bolts out and seeing if I can get this thing to come loose. And obviously it'll be super easy on the other motor, but also I'm going to stress this more too whenever I go to put everything back together. But once you get through the valve cover, and even the valve cover too, everything on this motor pretty much has a torque spec. So I'm a little bit, kind of got a hard on for torque stuff. So, because I'm super like factory by the book type. So when all this is said and done, I'm going to torque it down to factory specs and all that stuff. But that's really, really important, because you don't want to over torque or under torque anything, because if you under torque anything and it backs itself out, inside of all these moving parts and you somehow back a screw out in here, a short one or something, and it falls down in the wrong place, you're going to have a bad day. And then if you over torque something and you don't give something proper clearance or anything like that, again, you're going to have a really bad day because something's going to hit something else at a really high speed and something's going to break. So let's get started on this, and I'll get back with you guys soon. For the night anyways, we've hit a roadblock. Basically, the bolts inside of here that you can see right there are similar to these bad boys right here. And unless it's a special socket, I want to say just off the top of my head that that is a 12-point socket that I'm going to have for that. A regular 6-point's not going to cut it because the ribs that come off of those, the notches, are really small. So I'm going to have a special socket / 12-point socket for that to remove that. So for tonight, I guess my intermediate goal, since I've already got most of the disassembly done, I mean, I'm literally, with the right tools, I'm like 10 minutes from having the head pulled off of this one. So what I'm going to do is focus on the bike. Wow, what the fuck? The bike. That was crazy. And see if I can get a little closer to getting the motor out of it. To my knowledge, from where I am now, there should only be like 2 other bolts and a steel rod to finish the actual mount part of it. And then of course I got to see what to do about the chain and sprocket, because I can't just leave that hanging. So I'm going to try to make some headway on that, and then hopefully tomorrow get the proper tools. I mean, shit, if I can even get that motor out of there tonight and go ahead and do to it what I've done to this one already, you know, we can be 12 steps ahead of where we should be. So I'm going to shoot for that. I'll try to cover some of that progress and let you guys see what I'm doing, but it's super late and I do have to work tomorrow, so I'm not trying to die. But anyways, get with you guys soon. Stick around. So there has been progress made. I'm basically 1 bolt away from this motor just falling out of here. The chain's off. There's the rear axle. The only real dilemma is right now where that Allen wrench is. That's the last bolt, other than this bar that's obviously bearing no load at all. That bolt has to come out. Can't Wheelie Bro has no idea what's going on here though. If I had to guess, I'd say that is it's obviously the load bearing bolt, because you know there's no other bolts holding this thing in here. So our load bearing bolt has some weight on it, so I'm gonna have to get a jack, like a floor jack, up under the motor, which is what everybody does, and then you know you can just lower the jack to drop the motor out of here. So I'm gonna have to get one of those because I don't have that, and basically continue the rest of this tomorrow. So today is gonna go, you know, basically be finished by cleaning up and making sure I've got all my crap where it needs to be. I'm gonna go ahead and let those throttle bodies close. There we go. So the good part is that tomorrow when I pick back up on this, or, well, I have to sleep and I'm on nights tomorrow, so actually the morning after tomorrow, 24 hours from, 5 hours from now. Anyways, when I'm done with all this, hopefully the last thing that I'm gonna have to do is get a jack, put it under here, remove the last bolt, drop it, pull the wire and harness and stuff away, unplug what needs to be unplugged, and plug back up what needs to be plugged up. Do the same thing to that motor, to this motor, swap parts, slap it all back together. This should be an easy breakdown. This is your fuel rail that goes down. You can see these little blue guys somewhere in here. That's your injectors, is what that is. So your fuel rail would disconnect from your throttle body and your injectors and all that stuff. That's all stuff that we really don't want to damage. Injectors are expensive, so we're going to be super careful when we pull those. But other than that, I mean, like this reservoir that's just connected to the wiring harness, we can pull all that crap out. Any of these wires, Actually, a lot of this shit can really just stay plugged up because, I mean, obviously I'm gonna, you know, de-energize the entire thing before I go to pulling stuff. But all that I actually need to take off of this is these bad boys right here. This guy, coil sticks, spark plugs, throttle bodies, fuel rail injectors. Get that stuff off. Change the head with the same thing that I was telling you guys about earlier right there. And boom, that should do it. I may come up with a way to rig a hoist up in here or something to where I can actually just lower the motor down and pick the frame and the front end up away from the motor and literally just leave the motor where it's sitting right here and do it that way. Because really there's not that much that I need to take off back here. It's all right here on top. So I get all that disconnected and this might actually turn into a little bit easier of a job than I thought it was going to be. The only gray area that I have, I'll go ahead and fill you guys out on my whole where I'm not too confident about all this, which I'm confident in. I mean, it's nothing that I can't learn, but it's something that I don't know is going to require special tools or what, is when all this crap is back together, these little caps that go over the valves, what you can't see is up under here there's a spring that holds that valve shut, and the camshaft pushes down and opens that valve on purpose, and then the spring pulls it back closed. Well, when you put all this stuff back together, and I'm hoping that everything's pretty well good with this one, but when you put all this stuff back together, you're going to want to be super careful because valve clearance is a really big deal. Okay, these valves have to be, they have to clear a certain height for a couple of different reasons. I mean, you need your valve to open properly, but it's also really important for it to shut all the way too. And if it doesn't do that, you know, you could have a bad day. So yeah, so we're gonna get all that stuff figured out. It's gonna work out. So that's probably gonna be the longest part of this, and the part of it that I want to take the most time on. But the good news, I was just looking, I told you guys earlier we'd have to remove the injectors, but the injectors here are actually coupled with the fuel rail to the throttle bodies, so that can all come off as one piece. I'll just have to unplug them, or like I said, I may just leave them unplugged, fold that back, drop the motor right here, pull the parts off I need to, slap the new ones on them. Also, timing is going to be a thing, because on that crank sprocket and on the sprockets on the camshafts themselves, there is marks, and all that stuff has to line up right. Always refer to your manual. I mean, your manual is going to tell you everything you need to know, you know, but they're also going to tell you a certain thing, and then there's, you know, there's how Kawasaki wants us to do it, and then, you know, there's a way that we can do it and still get a similar outcome without some of the special tools and things like that that they may have that we might need. So anyways, you guys, I think I'm going to conclude this tonight. I'm going to pick all this stuff up and get it organized in a fashion that I can pick back up on it tomorrow and not be confused. So, but I'm really hopeful for all this. So there goes my flash. How about that? Really hopeful for all this stuff. I think it's going to turn out really good, and I don't think there's much downtime at all. Honestly, I really wanted to go through and repowder coat my frame and stuff like that, which may come later, because this half frame right here, that can be taken off without having to remove a ton of stuff. So, and that's honestly, the lower end here is fine. It's just up here there's some marks. So anyways, may still powder coat the subframe and the swing arm, but as of now, I mean, I think it's been 3 weeks, almost a month, whatever, that I've been down from riding this bike. So definitely going to get it running again. And depending on how soon I can get them ordered and what the turnaround time is, I may wait. Let's say I get her running this weekend. I might go ahead and see if I can get my Cox stunt cages on order and put those on, rather than put the Tiger Shark cages back on and then have to turn right around and take those back off. So, of course, I got to find a new tail fairing too. I mean, that one's fine. It's kind of cracked, but I want a tail fairing on here now. So anyways, thanks you guys so much for stopping by and watching me with this calamity. If you guys have any input, throw me a tip, tell me something that'll make this easier. But I honestly think I'm getting a lot closer to the home stretch now, and I don't think it's going to be much longer. Of course, post-wreck, I have gone through now and inspected, parts of the frame, the front forks, all that stuff. Nothing else got damaged other than the motor, and my front fender's gone. So that's the good part, is that, way to go, Badass Industries, for making super awesome frames that withstand virtually anything. And, good for you, Kawasaki, with your front forks. But anyway, super excited for when I can finish this, and I'm rambling a lot, but it's time to clean up and go to bed. So drop me a subscription if you haven't already. We are up to like 120 something now, and it's insane. Like, the number is growing faster than I planned. So I'm over here talking about like, yeah, I want to do like 100 subscriber special, and it's like every time I say something like that, like all of a sudden we're up to like 120, and I'm like, shit, like I haven't even had time to do that yet. So stick around with the rebuild series. I may try to mount the GoPro on the ceiling tomorrow or something like that when I get to working on this, and do like a time lapse or something like that. But of course, as I go through this, I want to give you guys a little bit of in-depthness to what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, because who knows if you'll have to do this or not, you know what I mean? And the internet is where everybody goes for information. So if I can do this properly and show you guys how to do it, I might save you some frustration when you're looking through your repair manual. It might be a little bit easier for you down the road if you watch me and say, oh, okay, well, this guy's already done this before, and maybe pick up on some stuff. So anyways, you guys have a great night, and I will get back with you guys super soon. Later.